The Jailer is known as the betrayer by the Eternal Ones. We also know that he has powerful allies and that he did something really bad long ago that caused his imprisonment to Tindamar and a complete restructure by the Eternal Ones. Additionally, we also know that the Voidlords invaded Shadowlands long ago in a very vague manner, and that it was a battle for the survival of the realm. But could the two actually be connected? And was this invasion actually the Jailer's fabled betrayal? Keep in mind, there will be some PTR spoilers in this video, so let's discuss this very interesting theory. Brought to you by Gamivo. Use my link to get Shadowlands and game time cheaper as well as any other game. Use code ORON for an additional discount. Until recently, we were definitely hinting with very little substance. However, some recent PTR leaks gave us a few more crumbs that could actually support a lot more speculation theories, and suddenly pieces really seem to be falling into place. Here is the, at the moment, most up-to-date version of what happened to the Jailer. Long ago, Zowal, which is his actual name, was one of the Eternal Ones, and by some speculation theories that leaked concept art, he might have even been the Arbiter or the main person within the entire Death Pantheon. Then, he somehow betrayed the Shadowlands Titans, and they all decided to work together and to imprison him. They utilized this thing called Domination Magic to trap him within the maw, and if you don't know what it is a very potent form of that magic that allows users to control and to reshape souls. As you have seen at the moment, it is literally the lifeblood of Torghast. Well, for the longest time he languished within his prison, but eventually the prisoner became the Jailer and his cell became his very own realm. We still don't know how that happened exactly, but we do know that he managed to weaponize the domination magic used to keep him in chains, and in turn, that became his biggest source of power. Primus sends this, the leader of Maldraxxus, who is also the main guy in charge of protecting the Shadowlands, and he decided to check out what exactly is going on with our little prisoner. He left his sigil, which seems like his main source of power, within Kortia, and then he went into the mall where he was defeated, imprisoned, turned into the Rune Cover, and had most of his secrets extracted from him, further empowering the Jailer. Now, after that, all the events that you know occurred, and we are close to 9.1 where things will culminate. However, here is some key information that all of us may have overlooked completely. We still don't know what the exact betrayal was, but an important thing to note is that he is said by Primus to have had powerful ancient allies that helped him, not only in the actual betrayal, but also in breaking his prison. Now, one of these allies is obviously the Loa Murzala that got him the Eye of Odin, and that allowed him to gain more power, but I think there might be a lot more powerful beings here other than a simple Loa. He didn't really get this far with just Murzala, that's for sure. I'm gonna go on a limb here and say that some of these ancient beings might in fact be the Voidlords, and I'm gonna explain my perspective in just a second, and you'll see why it actually makes a lot of sense. All of you that have played through the expansion have definitely seen two notable ancient invasions of the Shadowlands. With the recent PTR information, it was definitely confirmed that there really is a huge cosmological war going on, and that other forces across the chart see Death as a rival, and Death sees them in much the same manner. So Death isn't just a part of the cycle, but actually a competing force along with other realms such as the Light and the Void. Well, both of these have actually invaded the Shadowlands, but I think for entirely different reasons. Through Prince Renatal and the Revendar Covenant campaign, the attack of the Naaru was completely unveiled to us. Dreadlords wanted to infiltrate the Light. The Light caught on, they failed in this mission, so the Light decided to launch a full-scale assault, scorching the land, evident by the damage notable even to this day. On the other hand, the Voidlords launched a terrible assault upon Death as well. A huge part of the Maldraxxus army was damaged, and Bastion was nearly overrun. They barely managed to win this war, it really seemed like it was a really large struggle. However, a parallel can be drawn between these two major events, and you can see why they're completely different. See, when Light invaded Revendreth, Maldraxxus didn't actually step in and they didn't protect Revendreth, so then Atreus, through the Stone Rite, was forced to create the Stone Legion to protect his own realm. However, in the case of the Void, Maldraxxus did fight, as is evident by those graves within the realm dedicated to the champions that fell within this very fight. So my conclusion here is that Primus thought that Revendreth brought this upon themselves, they were overly zealous, and the Denario attack was more as a show of force and not a conquest invasion, so they didn't want to defend him. However, in the case of the Warlord attack, this may have actually been a war with the intent of taking over the Shadowlands, which is why Maldraxxus fought, as that is pretty much their actual purpose. Now, why is all of this information important for the topic? Well, we don't know when exactly this occurred, but it was said that it happened eons ago, and one of the defenders, when we relive the memory in Bastion, he says we fight not just for Bastion, but for Shadowlands as a whole. So what if these ancient allies of the Jailer were actually these Warlords, and he decided to make a pact with them so that he can get rid of the other Eternal Ones and he can control Shadowlands by himself? Or they may have been a civil war between them already, and he might have called upon the Warlords to help him, granting them in turn parts of the Shadowlands, which the other ones obviously saw as a huge betrayal, as he brought external help into their own realm. I think this definitely might be possible, and that it might just be a crime severe enough that they imprisoned him for so long. The Warlord invasion, from the memory, really seems like it was a struggle for actual survival of the realm, and then it was a desperate defense and not just a random localized incursion. Additionally, I think this story arc could also lead into the future expansion, Void related, and it would also explain why the old gods and all these Void creatures are constantly hinting about the Jailer, and it would confirm these speculations that these two forces are actually related. Even more interestingly, it might also explain the first ones and their involvement. As you know, the first ones are known as the creators and the architects of the universe, and they are pretty much above every other force. So maybe they realize that the balance isn't being kept. Jailer brought Void into the Shadowlands, and the Void Lords were close to taking over the realms, so the first ones stepped in, they pretty much defeated all of them, and then they created this intricate prison, put this guy in here so that he can't start things like this again and that he can't upset the balance, which would explain pretty much all of their presence within the realm. I gotta say, definitely a bit optimistic, and I may be overreaching here and may be completely wrong, but with the current information, it not only seems like a really reasonable explanation for the entire Shadowlands situation, but it would also be a perfect segue into a future expansion. Thank you for watching. Check out what is the actual confirmed origin of the Dreadlords, and also check out Lords Academy for videos in real world history and science. See you next time.